Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another preview show brought to you by the Known and Never podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Bromley, and this weekend, it's another local derby, the second one of the season, as we entertain our friends down the road, Preston North End. It's an early kickoff at Turf Moor, and we are joined this week by our very special guests from Preston to give us all the lowdown of our opposition, and of course, the main man himself, Dave Statman Roberts. So, listeners, buckle up, let's go. Diving straight into it, we're going to bring in our very special guest, who is Ollie from the Deepdale Digest. Ollie, we are really pleased to have you on the preview show here. Welcome to None and Ever.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to tomorrow as much as I can.
Well, let's not worry about that, Ollie. We'll get into that in a minute. I think, as we said very quickly before we came on air, we're just hoping for a good battle, back to the old days of a Burnley-Preston battle. It was a little bit disappointing, I think, the last time we met at Turf Moor. It wasn't really that much of a fight. So we're hoping that you've got a little bit more in you. That'd be great. And of course, listeners, the main man himself, the best view in football. It's Dave Statman Roberts. Dave, how are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, I'm still getting used to these midweek games, then weekends and early kickoffs. It's all go.
It is all go. And you know what? We do like to whinge as football fans, don't we? We whinge when we're in the Premier League. We whinge when we're not in the Premier League. We whinge when we've got too many games. We whinge when not enough games. And generally speaking, we should all just be a little bit better, I think. Well, let's dive into it. Preview show, listeners, you know the format by now. We're going to kick off with a couple of stats from Statman Dave to get us warmed up for our analysis. Take it away, Dave Roberts.
This weekend, both clubs were among the 12 original members of the Football League in 1888, and Burnley have played Preston North End more than any other opponent. There have been 141 previous meetings, home and away, in all competitions. However, Burnley have played more league matches, home and away, against West Brom and Wolves, 132 versus 128 against Preston. Burnley have managed 9 league doubles over Preston. The most recent occasion was in 2010-11. More about that season a little bit later. On the flip side, Preston North End have 8 league doubles over Burnley to their name.
Lovely stuff. Okay, Ollie, we're going to bring you in because obviously this is why you're here. We want to learn all about our opposition this week. It's an opposition that are very familiar to us, of course. It's a local rival, our Lancashire derby. Not really a particularly massive, hard, horrible, nasty derby. I think Burnley fans have got quite a bit of affection for Preston, and I think Preston have got a little bit of affection for Burnley. I think it's not the big one for either one of us as terms as local derbies go. But we still want to get your take on how things are going over at Deepdale and your hopes for the season. So let's start by taking you back to last season, please. That's what we want to know, please. We're going to start there. Respectable finishing for you in the end, 10th. There were a lot of times in the season where you were trying to push for that playoff spot again. I guess, how did you feel at the end of the last season, and how did it finish for you? What were your hopes in the summer?
Weird season last year because we started so well, and we were top of the league after 7 or 8 games, and then going into December, the form had just completely tailed off, and club had to release a statement sort of backing Ryan Lowe and saying they weren't going to sack him. Then we had another great run sort of around February, March time, and then ended the season with 5 defeats, no goals scored in that run either. So It was very much an up and down season. I did think that they should have probably made a change at the end of last season in terms of the manager. I think you're now sort of seeing that with him leaving after 1 game of this season, we're kind of playing catch up a little bit in that Paul Heckingbottom's now having to learn about this squad on the fly while playing Saturday, Tuesday in some cases, rather than having the full pre-season. I think, mid-table is always kind of the sort of steady goal for North End. It's a long time since they've been in the playoffs. So it feels like we don't really have any...
It was pre-us going up, I think, wasn't it? The first time, it was pre-2009. Did you have one after 2009? You had about 4, didn't you, where you got to the playoffs and missed out?
I think, off the top of my head, the last championship playoffs they got to was the one where you went up against Sheffield United in the final.
2009, 2010. So that was our year.
Because it could have been a Preston Burnley final in the playoffs, which
of course it could have been. Yes, you're
would
right.
have been horrendous for everybody.
Oh,
involved,
that would have been awful.
Yeah, dreadful.
Oh no, yeah, that would have not been. I mean, it wasn't pleasant enough as it was, to be honest. To have Preston there as well, that would have just been horrendous. I guess I know this sounds like a ridiculous question, but like mid-table of the Championship has been your position in your comfort zone for well over a decade now, or pushing maybe for a couple of decades. As a fan, is that enough for you? Does it not? Do you want to be challenging, or is that okay? Is it enough to keep you passionate and to keep you engaged?
It does get a little bit boring finishing 11th every season.
Yeah, I bet. And that's okay. It's okay to feel that.
It is, yeah. I suppose the reality of it is that our budget compared to a lot of the other Championship teams is very small. We have nobody looks at the sort of teams before the start of the season and says Preston should be top 6, top 8. Like I'm sort of well aware of our standing in the league, but you're right in that sort of since the turn of the millennium, we've spent all but 4 years in this division.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you just hope that we'll sort of get it all right one season, and before you know it, we'll be in the Premier League. Like, so Burnley did that a little bit under.
Blackpool did it. Burnley did it. That's the way. It's the way to do it. And I think we talked about this before we went on air about, you're the last. I'm sorry. I'm very aware that I'm ripping off some band-aids here. I'm sorry. Like, you're literally gonna rage quit on me in the minute. You're just like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm gone. But you are the last of the Lancashire clubs to the traditional Lancashire clubs to get that opportunity, and we could have easily be in the same position that you are now. Lancashire clubs don't have funding, they don't have global image rights, they don't have really wealthy backers, and we got that lottery chance in 2009 and went up, and that's basically got us going for 20 years. And so I think you're right in that it could be a lot worse being consistently average in the Championship. It's an important division to play, and you don't want to be in League One. But also, yeah, you're going to have to at some point, I feel, go for it one season. Really go for it and say, look, we can't keep treading water in the Championship. We've got to try and take a shot, because that one season financially will do so much for you. And I guess, do your fans feel that? Can you see that happening anytime soon, or do you think you're playing it safe?
I think what you said earlier about sort of being the last Lancashire team, like we still haven't made it, I think that has ramped up sort of, not aggravation, but just people are sick of seeing everybody else do it. Like, I
bet, yeah.
And not even from the sense of local teams either. Like Coventry, I know they've not got there yet, but they seem much better placed than we are. But
Luton,
yeah.
Bournemouth at the time, yeah.
There's so many of these clubs that seem to be sort of going straight past us, and that's I think the frustrating thing, where it feels like we are stood still a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's so many of these clubs. Like, would it be that surprising if a Wrexham or a Stockport finished above us in the next 2, 3, 4 years? Well, probably not, because
Wrexham's an unstoppable machine right now. Yeah, it really is. Oh, bless you. Okay, so I guess let's moving on then to looking at your manager. I mean, Ryan Lowe won one game and got sacked, and I don't get the impression that there was an awful lot of love lost between him and Preston fans. But you're right. You think, well, if you were going to do it so quickly, why didn't you do it in the summer and give it an opportunity to get a squad together and do some training? But, how are you feeling about Paul Heckingbottom? He's having to fight a losing battle. And I think your position in the league is probably indicative of that, as opposed to where we think you might finish. How has he started with the fans? And I guess what is his aim for this season? What does he need to do to keep his job and get the fans on side?
I think everyone's pretty happy so far. I think a lot of people see sort of similarities between him and Simon Grayson, who became our manager sort of quite a few years ago, but got us promoted and then really steadied us as a Championship club. And yeah, just sort of, I suppose it's the straight talking Yorkshireman thing where people have connected with that already. I think in terms of his goals for the season at the moment, it's just getting wins on the board, because I think performances have improved, I would say, on sort of away from home. We're still struggling a little bit. There's been a couple of really poor performances at Oxford and Millwall. But I think, just get some more points on the board. Try and pull away from the relegation zone a bit, because we don't want to be going into Christmas and New Year and still being where we are now.
Yeah, no, I do completely get that. It's it's a difficult. I guess is he playing any different? Like, has he changed the style of play, or is he literally just trying to steady the ship at the moment? Have you seen any differences in the way that he is performing?
I think he's been a little bit more flexible tactically. Under Lowe, we were very much wedded to playing 3 centre backs, wing backs. Then it would be either 3 midfield or 2, and then sort of 2 behind the striker. Yeah. Heckingbottom has sort of changed it a little bit, where some weeks we will still play 3 at the back. There's been times where we played sort of 4 across midfield and gone back to 4-4-2 almost. So he's been a little bit more I know, yeah, very exciting.
I miss 4-4-2.
Yeah, but like after being sort of, we were so committed to playing 3-5-2, but we never seemed to invest in any wing backs, and it just became this.
It's silly.
It just became ridiculous, where the windows would go by and these 2 positions on either side were still problems, and like you're going into sort of year 3 with Lowe at the helm, and you're just thinking, but I don't get what we're doing anymore. So yeah, that little bit more flexibility, I think, is sort of ease some fears a little bit, because Heckingbottom did play a lot of 3-5-2 at Sheffield United as well. I think a lot of fans are sort of fearing we were going for sort of the exact same thing. But yeah, little differences so far. But you're right,
you need that.
It's difficult for him at the moment because he has just come in like very early into a season. So yeah, he's probably still figuring the squad out himself.
Yeah, and you know what? It's a long old season as a championship. Nothing really seems to happen till after Christmas anyway. So you know what? He's got plenty of time. Dave, let's hand back to you then, please. So many matches between Burnley and Preston at Turf Moor that you could have picked. What have you highlighted as this week's memory match, please?
Well, we mentioned earlier about the 2010-11 season, and the BBC Sport cameras were at Turf Moor for a live evening kickoff. That was in the early stages of the campaign. And that's this week's No Nay Never Remembers. The match took place on Saturday, the 11th of September 2010. And without giving too much away, there was quite an exciting finish to the game. But we're going to let our very own Tom Whittaker give his recollections first.
We will. Over to you, please, Tom.
Hello, No Nay Never listeners. I've landed on my feet a bit this week with the memory match. It was there's so much to talk about from the game. It was Burnley 4, Preston 3. Brian Laws was the manager who had just come down from the Premier League. It was a bit of an indifferent start, some good wins, some bad performances, and it was probably in the latter camp for much of the game. We started off okay. I remember Chris Iwelumo put us in front, and then Preston took control. Keith Tracy had a really good game, I seem to remember, whatever happened to him. John Parkin scored a header, I seem to recall, as well at the back post midway through the second half, and we found ourselves 3-1 down, and we were really struggling. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Chris Iwelumo pulls a hat-trick out of the bag. 2 brilliant finishes. I remember there was a little clip ball by Graham Alexander, and he hit it on the volley, and it absolutely flew in. It was a brilliant goal. Got it back to 3-3. That was all preceded by a red card for Billy Jones for time wasting, which is not something you see very often. It was very enjoyable. And then Jay Rodriguez, or as I recall, Martin Keown was calling him on the BBC when I watched the highlights, Jay Roddy Jaeger for some reason. He popped up with a winner. I think it was the 3 goals were in the last 10 minutes as well, so it went from 3-1 down to 4-3 up. It was live on the BBC. I had loads of my mates who were watching it messaging me after the game. And it was even one where, as we were coming out the ground, eventually the Preston coaches were going past, and we stopped and gave them a polite wave, it's fair to say. So, yeah, fantastic game. If it's anything like as dramatic or exciting as that on Saturday, we'll all be very, very happy. Up the Clarets.
Do we remember that game well, Ollie?
Oh. As soon as you said before that you'd be picking out sort of a match from the years gone by, I almost said, please don't pick That one in 2010. Oh my God, horrible.
I said, it is a very friendly podcast, and we do want to know about it, but it is slightly biased. We would not be doing our job properly if we didn't pick one of those. So yeah, listen, for all the ones that we can gloat in, there have been ones that you can gloat as well. So there was a good chunk, particularly in the early championship years, where you were light years ahead of us. So there's been plenty of times.
Matt, can I give Matt one of my memories of that game as well?
Yes, of course you can. Go ahead.
The abiding memory. I mean, I wasn't actually at the game. Unfortunately, that was one of the rare games I missed around that time. There was a golden wedding anniversary. I had family event I had to be at, so I was up in the Lake District and managed to. I watched the first half, and then we went down for a meal. I was trying to get the score later on. There was like no mobile signal. It was ridiculous. And then afterwards, the abiding memory was the Preston North End fan in the stand who kind of rips a programme up and throws it. And there's the gif out there of the PNE fan in the cricket field stand. That's one I'll always remember.
That was in the really early days of social media and Twitter when things like that were first started going viral. And I remember that. And it was nectar. I was just lapping it up all the time. Anyway, let's move on before we lose Ollie. We said we were going to be friendly. Let's not rub it in anymore. Dave, kick us off with our second set of stats, please, before we move into the second half of his questions.
Yeah, I've got some more stats for us. 14 different players have made 50 or more league appearances for both Burnley and Preston North End in the post-war era. They are, deep breath, Eric Potts, Keith Tracy, Richard Chaplow, Mike Conroy, Steve Harper, Robbie Brady, Tyrone Mears, Tony Morley, Kurt Nogan, Willie Irvin, Gary Parkinson, Ross Wallace, Warren Joyce and David Ayres. Incredible number. And finally from me for now, a doozy of a stat. Since Preston won 2-0 at Turf Moor, that was in December 2015, Burnley have played exactly 40 home matches in the Championship. And the only other team to beat us since then are Queen's Park Rangers. That was a rare blip towards the end of the 2022-23 season.
Well, you say rare blip. We say it was a thrown game to let us lift the championship title at Ewood. That's absolutely, because otherwise we'd have won the championship there. And then we needed to win it at Ewood. Can you imagine?
It was worth it.
It was worth it. Ollie, can you imagine winning after an amazing, incredible season, winning the championship trophy at Bloomfield Road?
It's the dream, isn't it?
It's like and so many things had to happen that season for that to happen. Excuse me, I've just got a cough. Sorry, listeners, I didn't want to cough down the podcast at you. It's like that game also should have happened like a couple of months earlier, but because both Burnley and Blackburn went quite far in the FA Cup, it got rearranged. So we had to play it. It was never supposed to be that late in the season. And then we inexplicably lost to a relegation-threatened QPR at Turf to win it there. It was a beautiful moment. Anyway, enough of that. You don't care about that. Who do we need to be worried about on Saturday? Who is going to cause us the most problems, Ollie?
I would have said Militin Osmajic, but as I'm sure you're probably aware, that won't be happening anymore. He got his ban today for buying.
What a bizarre! What a bizarre. Talk us through that when you were watching, because that entire thing, Ollie, was a bizarre moment.
Yeah. I don't know what he's thinking. It's just truly bizarre. And yeah, he's got what he deserves. It's bad news for us, especially because he scored twice on Tuesday night, Wednesday night even. But yeah, just ridiculous. So without him in the team, Kane Kessler-Hayden had a very good game in midweek. He's sort of one of the few players we have that brings a real sort of burst of pace out wide. Yeah. So he'll either play as a wing back or right midfield, I would imagine. Masfrokia as a sort of attacking midfielder. When he's on his game, he can come up with moments of magic. He's been a little bit inconsistent this season, but the ability is certainly there. With Osmajic out, I think Emil Rees will probably start up front, and he's shown his quality so many times in the Championship before, but just not quite clicked for him this season. And what better occasion to sort of get back on track than against Burnley?
Yeah, that would be nice. How can we expect you to play?
In terms of
defensive,
tactically?
Is it going to be expansive football? How? Because I'll tell you, I put the context of that, Ollie, is that one of the things that we've has been a challenge for us this season. It's like we're very possession based. We do want to play a certain way. We're not the team that were of the decade in the Premier League. We're just not that team anymore. But we are finding it challenging to break down a typical Championship side that comes to turf and just doesn't even try and win the game, just absolutely parks the bus. Is that what we can expect from you, or do we think you'll try and give us more of a game?
I think our sort of main focus probably will be to keep it tight. I think Heckingbottom sort of said he doesn't want us to just be a counter-attacking team, so we might have a little bit more of a go than we had at Turf Moor a couple of years ago. But yeah, I would imagine that we will probably just try and frustrate for the large part and see what we can do going forward.
Excellent. What are your aims for the season, Ollie? What do you want from North End this season?
It sounds bizarre, but after the start we had where Lowe managed one game and then went, then Mike Marsh managed one game and went, and then Heckingbottom comes in and you're just like, you're already looking over your shoulder thinking,
yeah,
just don't go down, even though there were 40 odd games left when that happened. So yeah, just don't get dragged into a relegation battle. Hopefully just give Heckingbottom time to sort of mould the squad as he wants it. He's inheriting a team which I would personally say is pretty one-paced and needs some life bringing to it in the final third for sure. So yeah, just hopefully get ourselves up to mid-table again, which I know sounds boring, but in the situation we're in, it's probably
this season,
needed.
not so much. Yeah. Definitely. Good stuff. Where are you at the moment? Just trying to see. So you are 21st. Oh yeah, it's quite tight to the bottom. Although Portsmouth and Cardiff are really, really bad. You've got double their points already. So Christ, I didn't realise how far Luton had fallen down that table, you know. There's there's some pressure on Rob Edwards down there, which I just find a very bizarre and ridiculous. Anyway, let's not worry about them. Okay, where am I now? I'm away from I went off-piste, Dave. I forgot where I am. Where am I? Quick results overview. That's where we are. Give us the stats, please, Dave.
Yeah, certainly. As you might expect, Burnley have a fairly strong record in home matches against Preston North End. However, we haven't had it all our own way in recent meetings. The visitors have managed 3 victories from their last 8 visits, while Burnley have won all of the other 5. And Burnley's overall home record against Preston stands at played 71, won 39, drawn 16 and lost 16. Burnley have scored 126 goals and conceded 84.
Lovely stuff. Well, that rounds off Dave's stats for this preview show, listeners. And as you know, he spends an awful lot of time and effort pulling these together for the preview show. Those of you who don't already know by now, and if you're not, where have you been? What rock have you been hiding under if you don't know this by now? Dave has got his own website, which has got an absolute mountain of stats and data that you need on your beloved Clarets. For those of you watching this on our YouTube channel, there is a graphic on screen where you can see what you are aiming for. Dave, for those of us listening on our YouTube episode, where do they get the link, please, to see your stats?
The easiest way is there's a short link, which is bit.ly/Burnley Stats QL. That's Burnley Stats QL, all in uppercase. That stands for Burnley Stats Quick Links. And that just gives you a menu page. And from there, there's the 16 most popular pages. You can go there and explore the data to your heart's content.
Lovely, lovely stuff. Okay, Ollie, let's have a very quick match prediction from you, please. Oh, actually, no. Well, let's before we come to that, let's get some referee details. We'll hand over to George Poole, please, listeners, our little cheeky chappy, to give us the referee info ahead of the game.
Curiously, the referee this weekend is Gavin Ward of Oxted in Surrey. However, this is not the same Gavin Ward who played for Burnley and Preston North End as a goalkeeper in the late 1990s and early 2000s. He's now 54, right? And probably too old to be running around the pitch as the referee, as was probably also the case when he was a goalkeeper back in the 1990s. But I digress. This will be just the 3rd time that Gavin Ward, the referee, has taken charge of a Burnley match. And we remain unbeaten from the first 2, which he has been in charge. They were a 1-0 home win against Crystal Palace in January 2013 and a 1-1 draw more than 9 years later away at Cardiff City in October 2022. This time, we haven't had to wait quite as long to see him again. You'll be pleased to know that no red cards were shown in either of those matches, and there was just one yellow card shown to a Burnley player and 3 to our opponent. So Gavin is quite a sensible and relaxing referee. So fingers crossed for a good performance from Gavin against Preston North End on Saturday. Lunchtime kick-off, and fingers crossed Burnley can pick up another 3 points and carry on our under the radar but positive start to the season. Anyway, I'll speak to you next week for next week's referee watch, and in the meantime, up the Clarets.
Ollie, how are you feeling about this game? Give us some score predictions and some of your thoughts, please.
I would like to say we'd snatch a draw out of this one, but I think Burnley might have a little bit too much for us on the day. I think our last trip to Turf Moor is probably haunting me a little bit, but at least we don't have to face Nathan Teller again, which is truly a horrible experience.
We miss him. We've never really replaced him, We've never replaced him. And that Ashley Barnes-Nathan Teller partnership was a partnership I didn't see coming at all. That was like, he brought the best out of Ashley Barnes as well. And weirdly turned Ashley Barnes into quite a technical player, which none of us saw coming in any stretch of the imagination. So you're in luck, Ollie. I think our squad has most definitely declined in quality since we got relegated, let's say that. I mean, the team that faced Cardiff and Luton the first 2 games of the season would have just been the most ridiculous side in the championship history. So you're not facing them, but you have got Luca Cogliosho to deal with. And at some point, Lyle Foster has to come good. He's a little bit out of form at the moment, but we'll see. So are you going with a draw? Is that what you're going with?
I think Burnley will probably edge it, but I think it'll be...
Back your boys, Ollie. Come on. Back your boys. You're allowed to do that.
I'm a realist, I'm afraid.
Oh.
I'll say Burnley probably 2-1, but hoping we can pull something out of the bag.
Okay, that's a good prediction. Dave, where are you going?
I'm going to go for a Burnley win, but we are struggling a bit for goals. I don't think it's going to be high scoring. I think it might be 2-0.
Okay, I'm also going to predict a Burnley win, but I am going to say that this is the game that clicks. We have been threatening week after week after week for this side to just get better and better and better. I think it will be a riot. I think it'll be a Burnley 4, Preston 0. Sorry, Ollie. Hey, listen, if it's any consolation, I've been threatening that every single week, and it's been like 0-0 or 1-0. So the signs are looking good. Do not fret. Listeners, you know the drill by now. What is your score prediction ahead of this game, and who do you think is going to get on the score sheet for the Clarets? And indeed, can we keep another clean sheet? Our defence looking very solid, and James Trafford turning it out to be quite some player this season. If you are watching on YouTube, drop us a comment in the comment section below. And while you're there, turn on subscription and subscribe and turn on notifications. Sorry, wrong way around. Do make sure you get alerted when the next episode is out. Those of you who are listening on our podcast channels, you can contact us on social media. Let us know what you think the score prediction will be. EFL Talking Point this week, Dave. I think we need to move on to that. Now, it's a bit of a somber one this week, listeners, and I was a little bit unsure as to whether last week felt a little bit too soon for this, but EFL is mourning, of course, the tragic incident at West Brom where the West Brom fan passed away mid-game in the crowd. That's a horrendous thing to happen to anybody, but I think some of the reports that are coming out from that incident are that allegedly there was some delays and some difficulties getting medical aid to the fan in the stands. I guess my talking point this week is whether or not football clubs, and I guess large venue crowds anywhere, are doing enough in terms of medical support and safety of his supporters. Ollie, is this something that you think is okay, needs looking at? We're looking at this purely in the aftermath of an incident that's going to prompt us to look at this. But I guess, have you felt that the care could be better for our fans?
I mean, a little bit, because I think, so since football has returned from COVID, I think there are unfortunately more of these instances of incidents in the crowd, and maybe it is something that can be looked at and sort of more staff on hand, or whatever it may be, because unfortunately it's happening a little bit too often.
Yeah, it really is. Dave, it's a really tricky balance, isn't it, as well? And I think, how do you possibly get sufficient medical aid to a crowd of that many people? There's a reality to how you manage that, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, there has to be a plan of action. It obviously depends on the size of the ground. Obviously, when there's separate stands, if there's a facility, there needs to be a way of getting the kit, if it's for CPR, for restarting a heart, if that's what has happened. I mean, putting myself in that position, if it was going to happen to me, a football ground should be not an ideal place, but it should be a more safe place for that to happen in terms of chance of survival. Because if you were out anywhere else, yes, there are these facilities, but it's potluck, isn't it? At a football ground, they should be geared up for it. I mean, I remember a similar incident actually at Burnley. I don't know whether you remember the semi-final when we played Spurs. Sadly, there was a Burnley fan
in the Bob Lord.
In the Bob Lord stand in extra time.
That, of course. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was right before the goal as well, wasn't it?
It was, yes. 68-year-old Kenneth Hartley, who was given assistance by medics, but sadly passed away during extra time. But I mean, what a more positive slant on this was Bolton Wanderers midfielder Fabrice Muamba. Yes. He's actually now on Burnley staff. I mean, obviously that happened to him on the pitch. His heart stopped for, I think, for a long time, wasn't it? Like over an hour or something. And they managed to I mean, they managed to. I mean, he didn't play football again, but he's gone into a coaching career. And I think they are using that as trying to get fans involved and trying to say, well, with the British Heart Foundation, you can do an online course. It takes 15 minutes. And basically, from that, it's trying to give that knowledge out to other people to be able to step in until the medics get there in that sort of situation. So
what a fantastic initiative. Okay, well, we'll put some things in the show notes for that, listeners, and we'll get that out, put out on social media as well. 15 minutes to be able to help save somebody's life is a very small price to pay for your time. We would encourage all of our listeners to get involved. Team No Never will be taking that course. And we'll see if we can put ourselves in a position where we can help if called upon. Okay, let's finish off, Dave. No Never quiz of the week. It's No Never versus our opposition. The scores are level at 4 apiece. I've had some, and you know who you are, listeners. I've had some grief on Twitter this week. You can all pipe down.
Mainly me, actually.
It was you. I know it wasn't. There was other listeners as well. And Tom Whittaker got involved as well. So you can all pipe down. It's quite hard being in this seat, taking one for the team here.
We can swap it if you like, but for next time, you can set the question and I'll do it. If you want.
Ooh. Hey, do you know what? As a strategy, Jade, that's not a bad shout. Turn the tape. I think you get it a little bit too easy on here. Do you know what? I said this. I'm sorry, listeners. This is going to be a bit repetitive for those who listened last week. But Ollie, we had a situation a couple of weeks ago. I think it was Portsmouth, where the Portsmouth opposition view was also a stat guy. And my goodness, did I enjoy watching Dave squirm. I was like, are you feeling threatened, Dave? I was like, should we be fact checking you? It was very amusing. Anyway, Dave, for this week, we will take it. We'll see where we get to. Are we going to go behind, or are we going to go and get our noses in front again? What is our question, please?
Right, well, before I give the question, just for Ollie's benefit, I'm going to give the question, and afterwards you can decide, being the guest, whether to go first and give your answer first, or let Natalie go first. So here's the question. There's only ever been one 0-0 draw in a Burnley v Preston North End match at Turf Moor. But can you tell me which year the match took place?
Do you want to go first or second, Ollie? How confident do you feel?
I thought, I remember one at Deepdale on a Tuesday night a long time ago. But yeah, the Turf Moor has thrown me a bit. I will pass it over to you to go first.
And that's the tactic. Everybody has made me go first, and they've all beat me. So I've been listening this week, Dave, and I know that there was no clues.
There was no clue at all this week. In previous weeks, there have been.
This has been what's happened as well. It's been very shameful. There's been clues in the stats, Ollie, and I've not been listening. I've been doing other things while Dave's been talking, producing the show. Like, not just doing nothing, and I've missed it. So I listened this week, and there wasn't any because he knew I was going to listen. I'm going to say 1995.
Okay, yeah. I was going to go with 1975.
Oh, you've gone earlier. Okay.
Yeah, I started going to games sort of late 90s, and I just can't remember one, so I'm just going to guess that it was well before I started going.
Yeah, I quite like your stuff.
Okay. Well, the correct answer this week is 1988. So Natalie,
I'm closest. Oh, phew. Oh,
it was
the first. Go on.
It was the first leg of the O2 Windscreens Northern final.
Oh, come on, that's sneaky. Putting a cup game in there. I was thinking league. Do you know what? He's such a sneaky McSneaky, Sonoli, honestly. He's terrible. Feel free to trash talk him on Twitter when you get off this one for being mean. Hooray! None and never are back in the league. I hope that's not at the expense of you winning on Saturday. That would suck if that's how this is going to go. You lose the draw, but we lose again. Excellent. None and ever are back 5-4 in the lead. It was a close one, though. I didn't know where you were going with that stat. So excellent. Ollie, we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you. We'd love to have you back on for the second half of the season for the return leg if you are free. Check in with you, see how your season's going and see how you're getting along. Why don't you let our listeners know how they can contact you if they want to know more about Preston content?
Yeah, just on Twitter at Deepdale Digest. Yeah, thanks for having me. Be great to come on again later in the season. Yeah, just hoping for a good result tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Dave, thanks to you again. We will be back next week, of course, with the next preview show. But in the meantime, obviously, you know how to get hold of Statman Dave and to visit his website. The rest of the panel will be back probably on Tuesday with the analysis show, looking back at that game and seeing basically whether Burnley are we might be top of the table, but then who knows, or whether or not we've fallen foul of the not East Lancs derby, the actual Lancashire derby. Tune into social media and we'll let you know when that is going through. Dave and I will be back next week for the preview show. So as I mentioned before, please do subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss an episode. I've been Natalie Bromley. This has been the preview show brought to you by the Known and Never podcast. Until next time. The Known and Never podcast is brought to you in association with the talkSPORT Fan Network. Our host and editor is Natalie Bromley, and the show is produced by Matt Moss. Our resident statistician is Dave Roberts, and our FPL expert is Adam Dennett. The analysis show team is collectively Tom Whittaker, Rich Steele, George Poole, Charlotte Rigby, and Adam Dennett. Our music is provided by George Gaskell, and our newsletter team is headed up by Jamie Smith. If you don't already, you can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting knownandnever.substack.com. Thanks as ever go to our partners talkSPORT. We are proud to be associated with the talkSPORT Fan Network.